love movies and movie discussions, you've come to the right place. Who am I, you ask? I am the Wiz! And I'm here today to review the 2013 animated film Justice League, The Flashpoint Paradox, featuring the voice of Kevin Conroy, Nathan Fillion, Michael B. Jordan, Cary Elwes, Ron Perlman, Justin Chambers, Kevin McKidd, and a shit ton of others. Directed by Jay Oliva. Okay, so why am I doing animated films based off of superhero properties? Specifically since everyone's kind of getting sick of superhero movies. But the honest truth is that these are actually pretty good. I've seen a few of them in the past just out of curiosity. I watched a bunch of the Batman ones. Ones that I would like to highlight that are actually very good are Batman Under the Red Hood and Batman The Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and 2. I thought they were really good. I'll admit it right off the top, I'm more of a Marvel fan. When I got into comics, I read Marvel a lot. Mostly X-Men and Fantastic Four and What If. For some reason, I was fascinated by What If. I also got back into comics when I was in college, like in my 20s. I didn't read the superhero stuff. I read more of the indie stuff, like Pride of Baghdad, Can't Get No. Can't Get No is fantastic, by the way. I've been a comic book fan on and off. The superhero stuff has always fascinated me, so that's why I think I still like the superhero films, even though I'm getting a little tired of it as well. But I definitely want to give more of these types of animated films a shot, and I've heard really good things about this one. So let's get into it. Let's get into the review of Justice League, The Flashpoint Paradox, directed by Jay Oliva. And before that, let's get into the plot. The Flash, who is voiced by Justin Chambers, causes a temporal ripple that creates a fractured reality. In this reality, his mom exists, but there's a war between Wonder Woman and Aquaman for the entirety of Earth. Flash then teams up with Batman and Cyborg to restore the timeline and to stop the war from happening and for him to return back home. All right, well, that is the plot, so let's get into my 3 points. And my first point is this looks like a slightly more grown-up Saturday morning cartoon. I am unabashedly a fan of Batman the Animated Series. I still think that TV series is one of the best TV series of all time. I will defend that till my dying day. I love that series, and I still come back to it every once in a while to watch a few episodes, like Heart of Ice, Mad Love, and stuff like that. Like, they're great episodes, are really good Cape and Cowl shows. So I love that series. But this definitely reminds me of Saturday morning kids WB cartoon, but slightly more grown up. And what I mean by that is that it still maintains that feel somewhat until it goes into the time rift, which it gets a little darker, gets a little moodier, and it gets more like, I guess the best way I can say is dude bro-ier, I guess, is the way. But it also has a lot more violence. It's actually a little more visceral. There's dismemberment, there's blood, there's bone crunching throughout the entire action scenes of the film. It really feels like it's for people who grew up during the Kids WB stuff and wants a slightly more grown-up version of that. I kind of liked it. It's not where I think it's like adult, as in like people who like adult stuff will watch. I think it's more like the Kids WB stuff is for like under 13, and this is more for 15 to 18. I think the jump from that actually works, and it works in its favor. And my second point, voice acting is hit and miss. There are some people that I like in this movie that do a good job in voice acting. One I want to give a highlight to is Kevin McKidd as Batman in the temporal rift version of reality. I think he was very good as Batman in this movie. Also, the ones that are the mainstays, like Kevin Conroy, Dana Delany, I mean, they're fantastic as well. They've always been fantastic. That I am not surprised by. But there are ones that are really not that good. One primary example is Michael B. Jordan as Cyborg. I think he slept through this, to be completely honest. I listened to him, it just seems like he's reading lines. Maybe I'm not familiar with Cyborg, and that might be the case in my end. And Justin Chambers as the Flash, kind of disappointed. I wasn't really impressed by that. But I think the best actor in this one is C. Thomas Howell, who played Professor Zoom or Ebarth Vaughn in this. I think he was really good. The rest are kind of average. Cary Elwes, Ron Perlman, Nathan Fillion. It's just Nathan Fillion. I think it's a mixed bag. There's some good, there's some bad, but it's still a little disappointing in my mind. And my third point, this seems more suited to a more educated audience about the source material. So I think this movie relies on the viewer to know a little bit about these characters to get how messed up everything is. I mean, you're going to understand Batman right away if you have watched any comic book movies or any TV shows regarding Batman. You're going to get right away how that's messed up. And Superman as well. But I don't think you're going to get Cyborg. I don't think you're going to get any of the other characters and how messed up they are. Aquaman, maybe you sense Wonder Woman to a certain extent. But I think, honestly, if you are more familiar with the comic books or with the characters themselves outside of the movies, I think you're going to get more out of this than I would say a casual fan who just watched the films because they were popular. If you know more about the canon of the comic books and why the characters are the way they are, I think you will get more out of this. Would you enjoy it if you weren't? Maybe. But I think you'd enjoy it more if you have that information already embedded in you. And here are the footnotes for the Justice League, the Flashpoint Paradox. Why couldn't this be what The Flash was from last year? I reviewed The Flash last year. It was, I think, the next to worst movie that I reviewed that year. I think Love Story was the worst, and I think that was right next to it. This story was actually pretty good. Like, I actually liked this. But The Flash from 2023 with Ezra Miller was horrible on so many ends. Like, Flash was not a good character. Both of them, I should say. The villains were not interesting. It was just a complete disaster of a movie. After I watched this, I was just like, why couldn't this have been The Flash? Like, why couldn't they just say, okay, we have the story, let's just use that? Why? Oh, God. Moving on. Overall, I'm going to recommend Justice League, the Flashpoint Paradox, but I'm going to say this with a caveat. If your familiarity with the comic book characters are the movies, I think you might somewhat enjoy it, but I don't think you're going to enjoy it as much as, say, somebody who is familiar with the characters in the comic book. I might be wrong. I'll even be honest. I'm not overly familiar with the comics. I was more of a Marvel fan, but I know a lot about the character. But I really think the people who are familiar with, I would say, the Saturday morning cartoons, which I was, and the comic books, which not really, I think you'd get more out of this than somebody who will just come out here and goes, I watched Man of Steel. I want to check this out. May not be for you. I think the animation's fine. Again, it's a step up from these Saturday morning cartoons, especially after they do the temporal rift jump. And some of the voice acting is kind of hit and miss. There's some that are really good. There's some that are not that great. But I think this was an okay time. Do I think it's the best that I've seen thus far of those animated films? Not even by a long shot. Overall, I will recommend Justice League, the Flashpoint Paradox. Check it out if you are interested. Now, if you want my full review on this movie, you can go to my website at IamTheWiz.com. You'll have my full written review right on the site, along with a link to the video that has this review that you've just listened to. All right, so for Thursday, it's the 007 Debriefings with Zero, and we're going to be doing Die Another Day. Please send help. Saturday is going to be Constantine, City of Demons, the movie. And on Tuesday, I think for the following week, I'm going to do some war movies. And I'm going to watch a movie that is something I've been curious about, but I haven't gotten around to it for reasons. So I'm going to watch a movie from 1983 called Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. This is directed by Nagase Oshima. What's interesting about this movie is the director. And the director has made other movies that are, I would say, controversial. Well, very controversial. I will discuss that a little bit next week. So if you are interested, check that out. Tune in Thursday, which is the 007 Debriefings with Die Another Day. Saturday is Constantine, City of Demons, the movie. And Tuesday, Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. I am The Wiz, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.